Welcome, welcome. And this is a special edition of my Human Design Transit Reports that's focused on the Human Design New Year. So on Sunday, January 22nd, the Sun will move into the gate 41 and the Earth will move into the gate 31. Now, what makes this special is that the gate 41 is known as the initiating codon of our DNA sequence. Interesting. Now, I'm not a genetics expert or an epigenetic expert or anything like that, so I can't give you a lot of details about what that might mean. But what I want to do is just talk a little bit about what we're doing right now here on planet Earth in kind of a big perspective from, Ostara's point of view. Which is that we are evolving faster and faster and faster, and that we are in a pressure cooker, and we need to evolve as quickly as we possibly can, because the adolescent period of the time for Homo sapiens is coming to an end. And we need to evolve into our full maturity, really step into adulthood. Because with adolescence, we tend to be very self-absorbed. We're kind of like, what's in it for me? How am I building my independence? How am I differentiating myself from my parents? How am I making a way for myself in the world? I might even begin to start to have a family, although that's really kind of a better thing to do when you're more in adulthood. But these are all hallmarks really kind of Western culture also. And so we are in a state where our world is now facing a lot of challenges, environmental degradation and climate change and so on, that are a result of this kind of adolescent behavior that we have been engaging in collectively kind of as people in the Western world. And so given that, the fact that we every year get to restart this codon, this winding of DNA, right, with the Human Design New Year, gives us an opportunity to kind of pause and think about, well, what is it that I really am evolving through right now? What is it that's in my genes or my epigenetics? And I believe that everything is really changeable. Now, I don't know if genes per se are changeable, but definitely our epigenetics, which is what turns genes on and off. And there can be as many as 300 on a single gene. So we're talking like a lot of nuance, right? And we have the ability to change our epigenetics and how we experience our genes. And this is really from a kind of energetic, spiritual point of view, the code of light upon which this form is made. And definitely there's an influence in our human energy field. And human design is giving us one view on that human energy field. There's many other maps that are out there, but human design is a particular one. And it's helping us to see we have this opportunity now as the sun moves into the gate of imagination, right? It's fantasy in traditional human design, which is usually thought of as kind of wishful thinking and potentially manipulative, definitely kind of illusionary, right? Which is the more disempowered aspect, but imagination. And so if we tap into our imagination and we tap into what's possible and we start to get outrageous about our potential and what could happen, so much becomes available. And the gate 41 is resting on the earth, which is lighting up the gate of democracy or the leader. It's the end of the logic circuit or the pattern circuit. And so this type of leadership is collective. It's able to see the big picture, and it's able to see the patterns, and it's able to see potentially where that might change. So if you can bring in this big picture, this ability to say, okay, let's look at the whole and decide how we're going to lead from there in a way that is equitable, that is regenerative, that is fair to the world's people and to the more than human world. What kind of leadership do we want to ground ourselves in? And we have the ally of our imaginations to help us to be able to do that. So here we are at the beginning of this new winding of our DNA, and we get to ask these questions, right? And my invitation for you is to think about, How are you showing up as a leader in your life? That could be something that you're doing just for your own self, just for your own family. It could be in your business. It could be in your company. It could be in your community. But we all have many opportunities. And I'll give you an example of something that just came up to me recently. So I live here in Northern California, and we have had an enormous amount of rain. We had 9 separate storms move through in the last 2 weeks, with an enormous amount of rain. And at first, I was going outside and dumping the buckets of water because when it's not raining, we have mosquitoes, and then we have problems with mosquitoes. And then I went, wait a minute, there's all that water. So I got a big rubber garbage can and all of the different buckets that I had, and I put them out there. And I also have 2 clawfoot tubs that sit in my backyard, and I plugged them, and now everything is full of water. And what occurred to me is I was like, why aren't we all doing this? Why don't we all have water catchment systems? Why are we letting all of this water, because something like 80% of the water that just came down in rain just went out into the ocean. A bunch of it did go into reservoirs. A bunch of it did go into snow, but an awful lot of it just went right down through the creeks and the streams and the rivers right into the ocean. So we lost all that water, which we desperately need here in California. And I said to a friend of mine, and we were talking about this, and she was saving buckets of water because she ran out of power and she needed to have buckets of water to flush her toilet. And I said, why aren't we all saving water? She goes, yeah, some people are. I said, yeah, but are you? And she goes, no. I said, I'm not either. I'm like, are any of our friends? Do you know anybody personally? She goes, no. And that's really the way it needs to go. And I'm like, yeah, it's really the way it needs to go. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to start asking around and finding out who is doing water catchment systems and how easy or difficult is it to do? How many of us can get involved doing it? Right? Can we help each other set them up? I don't think it's super complicated, because if we all did that, we could save so much more water, and I could use that to water my garden like all summer long, right? So this is an example of where the imagination started going, right? And I started going, well, what if we could do that? And then there's this leadership, which is about making things more regenerative, making it more equitable, working for, the non-human or more than human world, as well as for us. And so I'm sure there are examples in your life that are close into you where you can be like, wow, I could actually do something with that. I could take on the responsibility to work with other people in order to make something happen that is going to support the evolution of our world in the direction of us being more regenerative, of us being more of the sovereign stewards that we are evolving into, in my point of view, so that we can move out of our kind of narcissistic adolescence, which is kind of where a lot of us have been, into something that is more benevolent, in the sense that we are looking out for the well-being of all beings, well-being for not just ourselves, not just our families, not just our tribes. We're kind of evolving out of a more tribal orientation into a more collective orientation when we start thinking about more and more people. So that's my invitation to you as we start yet another new year. I also just want to show you how this works on the Human Design Mandala. So here's a picture of the mandala, and then there's the arrow is going to the gate 41. And so you can see where it is, and then we're going to move around this mandala over the course of the year, and we're going to go through all of the different gates. The sun's going to go through all the gates, all 64 gates, and then the earth is too on the opposite side of the mandala, and they're going to move around like this. If you want to find out more about that, you should watch the video that is about the essentials to know about the transits, because I go more deeply into that, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to dive into that. All right, my dears. Well, many blessings to you. Happy New Year. And I really want to invite you, give you full permission to be imaginative, to take on some mantle of leadership, big or small, to step out of, your comfort zone, your, what's familiar to you, and do something different, do something radical, do something outrageous, just say, hey, you know what? My life could be bigger. I could be bigger in my life, because you know what? I think most of us can. And we need to kind of be spreading our wings in that regard. All right. Much love to you. I hope to see you in our virtual retreat center soon. We got some really great stuff going on in there. All right. Many blessings. Much love. Bye.